Hey, it's Glenn, and my air conditioning is running. I know it's loud. Like every time I edit these videos and I hear the air conditioning cutting off and on, I'm like, ugh, I hate that sound. But at the same time, it's hot. Like it got almost to 80 the last 2 days, and it's late January, so I don't know. I'm just gonna leave it running. I'd rather have that annoying noise for a little bit than be too hot. So, um, I want to gush. I want to gush about a show I watched on Netflix last week, and I just haven't sat down to gush. But like I want to talk about two things. Two things in this vlog. Because something weird happened last night, and I'll do that first. And then I'm going to tell you everything I think about Masters of the Universe Revolution. I'm not going to go there yet. I'm not going to go there. I'm going to talk to you first. I'm trying to get it low because I adjusted the camera and now my head is touching the top of the image. Oh well. Oh well. So... So, alright, again, I always preface stories like this by saying that I do not expect you to believe what I'm telling you. I don't need you to believe what I'm telling you. I'm sharing my experience and the mystery thereof. So I'm genuinely fairly convinced there's a ghost in this house. And like, okay. So I don't remember which video it was. It was either, I think, one of my vlogs like this, or it was an I Can't Sleep video where like I think it was an I Can't Sleep video because no one was home. That's right. Because I remember talking. So, I'll probably, okay. It's the one called I Can't Sleep because mean people or evil people are straight up weirdos. I think the title was something like that if you want to look it up. Otherwise, I will take a clip from that, which may be a nothing clip, because I don't have very good headphones. I don't know if the sound I was hearing in real time came across in the video, because it sounded like it was coming from another room. Oh, the AC shut off. There you go. But like, I was making this I Can't Sleep video, and I was heavily medicated at the time. I'd had sleep medicine, and by my own confession in the video, I figured out I had too much sleep medicine. But, you know, when I edited it, it wasn't as off the rails at all as I thought it was in real time. In real time, I thought I sounded completely crazy, but edited it and I liked it. It worked. Unmedicated Glenn thought it was pretty solid. So, I need to get better at looking at the camera. Because that's something else I notice in editing, is that I look down and away, like I'm not looking at the camera. Hello camera, hello people in YouTube land. Okay, so here's what... So yeah, I was making that I Can't Sleep video, home alone. Chase was somewhere, Matt was somewhere, and I was talking to the camera, just as I'm doing now, and I stopped a couple times because I was like, someone is growling in my house in another room. Like it sounded like it was coming from like Matt's room or Chase's, just right over there. And like the first time it happened, I was just like, well, that's weird. And the second time it happened, and I was like, really starting to feel a little bit nervous that there was a lion in my house or something. Like, there was growling, but it wasn't loud. You know, it was quiet, and that's why I don't even know if it came up on the audio of the video. Um, I mean, maybe you have better headphones than me. I'll play the clip like right here, and if you hear something, let me know. I need better headphones because I heard it in real time twice. I think it was twice. The video will tell. But yeah, I mean, here's that clip. I just heard someone growl in another room in this house, and no one's home but me. Or I wouldn't have started this magnificent conversation with myself. I mean, we can make it a conversation, like, who's growling in my house? Is there a lion here? I mean, it's probably just Lucifer again. Okay, yeah, so I mean, there at least you see me reacting to a sound that I was hearing, which doesn't mean it was a real sound, because again, let's be scientific, I was heavily medicated, but that doesn't ever lead to hallucinations, auditory or otherwise, in my experience. It just leads to me getting a little bit loopy and sleeping like a log. So it's a strange thing. And then last night, like, I kind of dismissed the growl after making that video and didn't think of it until last night when I was taking a shower and the bedroom door locked from the inside. Always. I can hear what everyone's doing while I'm taking a shower. Matt was on the other side of the wall playing video games, and Chase is in his room screaming and swearing while he's playing video games. Clearly, I know where those two guys are. So I'm in my room, door locked, go into the shower, close the bathroom door, and get in the shower, and shower door's still open. And I'm like just getting started, just all singing, I'm like shampooing, gonna wash that man right out of my hair. Not really, that's not what I... My mom used to sing that when I was a little tiny child, and she would wash my hair. So, yeah, anyway, so I'm in the shower, and suddenly the doorknob on the bathroom door turns hard. Like, it turns hard, and I turn around, and the door, like, I heard the doorknob turn. And then I turn around, and the door is opening. And not slowly. It's opening like someone is walking into the bathroom. And I'm just like, okay, I'm not so wet right now. So I get out of the shower, I check the bedroom door is still locked from the inside. There is no key. And yeah, the doorknob turned. The doorknob is what opened the door, because that is the first sound I heard, was the doorknob. No one's here. And it's not like I waited to get out of the shower. I immediately got out of the shower. There was no one bolting out of the room. And there's no way they could have been, because the sounds of gamer madness never stopped. So that was weird. And, you know, it's not the first time. I don't remember how many stories I've told, like, when Matt and I were living here alone before Chase moved in and was loud. because, yeah, Chase screams. Like, he comes home from work, goes into his room, turns on the game, and just starts yelling at the top of his lungs until about 2 a.m. every day. So, knocking ghost phenomena, if they're going on, I haven't noticed because it's too loud. Because, all the knocking ghost did, appropriately, was knock. And, I mean, okay, so I'll tell you some stories. If I haven't already, I may have said this in another video, but new context because weird things are happening. So, like, when we first moved in, like, I would just hear knocking here and there, just like that, on the walls. And I was trying to tell Matt, because, like, stuff would happen when he was, like, out at the batting cages or something. Like, he'd be doing something out of the house and I'd hear knocking. And he would never be there when it happened until he was. Because we were trying to figure out where walls lined up. And so he was going on one side of the wall and I was to knock on the wall so that he could tell where the other side of the wall was in relationship to where he was. And I was waiting on the other side for him to tell me to knock, because he was like, okay, I'll tell you when. And I'm waiting, and he never does. And then he comes back in, and he's like, well, the knock was a little faint, but I'm pretty sure you were right. And I'm like, I didn't knock. You never told me to. And that was the first experience he had with the knocking ghost. Which, of course, again, let's be scientists. Y'all could just decide I knocked on the wall to make him think there was a knocking ghost. I know that didn't happen, but again, I am not asking you to believe me. I have no agenda here. I'm just telling you my experience. That's what this vlog is about. So again, and there have been twice that I remember when we had a party and people were here and everyone's inside, everyone is accounted for, and there's a knock at the front door. Open it, no one's there. The first time I just said, come on in, knocking ghost, you're invited too. And my favorite knocking ghost story from this house is I was looking everywhere for my brown blanket. Because I think it was cold. I wanted to sit at my computer and wrap up in it. And like, so I'm looking everywhere for this blanket and I have no idea where it is. It's just nowhere. It's nowhere in the room as far as I can tell. And I finally just go, where the hell is my brown blanket? And I hear, and I turn towards the knock, and there's my brown blanket. Crazy, right? Oh, I'm falling off the bed. This brown blanket right here. And so, when that happened, I'm just standing in my room realizing the knocking ghost just told me where my blanket was, and so I just I'm like, thank you. Thank you. Oh, I need some root beer. Root beer is good. That made a funny noise. I don't know if you could hear it. It sounded like a cartoon. My stomach just made a weird noise. Okay, so, I mean, those are the major stories. It's not like scary, haunted, or anything. It's just there's something going on, and I think it's interesting. Like, I don't know why, if that is what's going on. Because all of it could be coincidence, right? All of it could just be something else in the wall that sounds like... I don't know. I don't know what it would be, but it could be. I mean, keeping an open mind also means looking at a more skeptical approach. Keeping an open mind doesn't just mean being open to the fantastical. It means being open to the possibility there's a ghost, and it means being open to the possibility that it is something much more mundane. So, I'm just telling you it's an interesting thing going on. And the bathroom door thing, though, like, noises are one thing. Noises could be caused by anything. Potentially. Like house noises. But the bathroom door thing last night was just kind of like, no. It's a ghost just walked in on me in the shower. And I'm all, oh, step ghost, what are you doing in here? Anyway, so like, yeah, so that's that. I mean, there's nothing else to say about it, really. It's just a thing that's going on, and I figured I might as well spill that here, so in case it progresses. Or just, so you have something to look back on and say, oh yeah, he's been talking about that. But it's not like I'm going to launch a full-scale paranormal investigation or anything. But I am curious, like, why? Why the growling? Why the opening the door? And is that the same ghost? Is that the knocking ghost? Or is the growling ghost something else? Or the the step ghost? I don't know, but a ghost walked in on me in the shower. So there you go. So anyway, Masters of the Universe Revolution. I freaking loved it. And I am a He-Man fan from way back when. I'm not going to get too into that because I think I'm planning a Masters of the Universe thing for the Books I Love series that I'm doing on here this year. I don't know. I can't remember if I settled on doing that one or doing something else. When I was blocking out the year's videos. But, if I don't do it this year and I keep doing that series, I will definitely do it next year. So I don't want it to be redundant. So I'm not going to talk too much about like why I love Masters of the Universe. Just in case I do... what I was thinking about doing was the original 1982 DC Comics miniseries. And as one of the books I love and why. But suffice it to say, I have been a Masters of the Universe fan since I was 9 years old. And I feel like Kevin Smith, who is the showrunner for a couple years back, Masters of the Universe Revelation, and just last week, the sequel miniseries, Masters of the Universe Revolution. I feel like he is a gosh darn genius. Like, he isn't an old school He fan. He got this offer to run this Netflix show because he's a big comic book guy. He's a big, like, superhero guy. Like, he swears up and down he's incapable of making an actual Hollywood superhero film. I feel like Masters of the Universe Revelation proved him wrong. Because, yes, it was animated. It was an animated series, 10 episodes. But had it been a live-action movie, it would have been an epic blockbuster that would have made He-Man a solid household name again. Just, it was so good. And so the sequel, Revolution, continued on. Like, it's only 5 episodes, but it's just as epic. And so, things I loved about it. I mean, other than just fandom stuff that I'm gonna lose a lot of you if I talk about it, because you're not gonna know what I'm talking about. Like, just the balls this thing. Like, that's how I felt about Revelation too. Like, it had balls. It's a bold and daring, epic sci-fi fantasy superhero story. And one of the things that's, I think, for me as a storyteller, significant, because I have issues with, I'm a huge comic book fan, but I have some issues as a storyteller with some of the tropes, like floating timelines, for example, I despise. Like, I always felt like, what if there was a ticking clock in the DC universe, and since the 1930s, the writers will have had to make decisions about these characters' lives, like, and they finally, I mean, Superman and Lois Lane have kids now, but it took them, 80 years? And they're still in their 30s. And now their kid is all grown up, and they're still in their 30s. I hate that. I feel like, let your characters live genuine lives. Like, the Epic of Superman could have just become a classic by now. Like, the life of this character, and then when it ends, it ends. You have to decide, when does a character die? Are you going to make all of your characters immortal? Because that's lame. And that gets me to the other point. When death has no meaning in a story, which soap operas are one thing, daytime soap operas, but it's almost a joke. Like, it's comical to me, and it feels like it's done very tongue-in-cheek on daytime soap operas because they kind of know it's stupid. But like comic books, when they're the superhero genre in particular, ever since they found out how much money they could make in the 90s by killing Superman, and then found out how much more money they could make by bringing Superman back, they've made a habit of killing and resurrecting just about everyone. To the point that now when a major character death occurs in a comic book, I'm irritated by it because I don't buy it. I don't believe it. I'm unconvinced and I'm underwhelmed and I am unaffected because death has no meaning. It's just, okay, no, he got atomized. He'll never come back now, except, yeah, he will. They'll bring him back. He'll get better. My favorite on a daytime soap opera, Days of Our Lives. Like, I watched that show as though it were a comedy. There was one summer in particular that I was just obsessed with that show. I would miss an episode here and there because there were better things to do in the summer, but most days, if I didn't have something else to do, I was watching Days of Our Lives because it was absurd. And there was the recurring big bad villain was Stefano, and dude, I think he was like in a mine shaft or something and like blew up. He exploded. Like, the dude is dead, his guts are all over the walls. Like, I mean, they didn't show that on a daytime soap, but that's what you are left to understand. Stefano is no more. He's been blown the hell up. So, watching Days of Our Lives, and who should appear but, oh my god, it's Stefano. He survived somehow. How? I don't know, but he's got a Band-Aid right there. So that explains it. It's like in Star Wars Episode 9, when how did Palpatine come back? Like, how did they explain that one. They just have Poe Dameron say, somehow Palpatine came back. And everyone just accepts that. And I'm like, no, please don't do this to Star Wars. I mean, granted, Palpatine came back in the comics, but they made it make sense. And it wasn't like everyone could do it. But if somehow Palpatine came back, then how come somehow someone else can't? We can just explain anyone back to life that way. Oh, somehow. Somehow Tarkin came back. Somehow Jabba the Hutt came back. Let's just accept it. He's the new threat. He's gonna sell movie tickets and popcorn. So while the death and return of Superman was great, like it was great, it was sci-fi, it was, you know, and I can give them that once, and he's Superman, so I'll give it to you that, yeah, he just kind of got better. Like, it took him a minute, but he got better. But, like, then when it's every superhero dies, and then every superhero comes back to life, the one guy they left dead for 20 years or so, the Flash, Wally West, you know, he wasn't my Flash. When I was reading comics, it was his successor. They were serious about his death. He died in the Crisis on Infinite Earths. And it had impact. It was powerful because he never came back. That death was, you know, it was no turning back, no takebacks. It's done. Dead is dead. Just like it is here, you know. So if we kill a character, you need to take that seriously, readers. Well, he got better too. They undid that one. Brought back Wally West. And not Wally West, I'm backwards. Barry Allen. It was Barry Allen. The Silver Age Flash. Wally West is, see, that's what, because to me, Wally West is the Flash. Because when I was reading The Flash in the 90s, that's who the Flash was. He was Barry Allen's nephew and successor. But Barry Allen stayed dead for 20 years. We honestly believed it. Nope. Thank you, Superman. We're going to sell more comics by bringing Barry Allen back from the dead. Right, so my point regarding Masters of the Universe, the Kevin Smith Masters of the Universe, because that's what I'll say instead of just saying both titles that are so very similar and confusing. I'm bound to screw it up. But, so people died in the first series, the 10-episode original that he did for Netflix a couple years back. People died. And, okay, I'm going to spoil the hell out of this, so if you're going to watch it, do that first. Otherwise, just listen to me, just let me go. Just let me be happy and rant about He-Man. So, the first series, they kill He-Man, Skeletor, and Mossman in episode 1 of 10. They're dead. It's like, what the hell? Oh my god, this show has balls. But then there's this whole very mythological story. It's, you know, it mirrors a lot of Greek myth, like going into the underworld. It was fantastic. And, you know, they found Prince Adam's soul in paradise. And, like, Prince Adam being the alter ego, the Clark Kent, as Clark Kent is to Superman, Prince Adam is to He-Man. You know, he holds aloft his magic sword and turns into He-Man. So they go on this quest like the other heroes, and they find his soul in paradise where he's been given his reward. And it turns out he's the only He-Man who chose to live in paradise as his weaker self. So they call him Flea Man. Because he's this scrawny kid, and there are all these big buff former He-Men of the past who got their reward. And so ultimately he has to make a choice. He can return and help save his home planet and be He-Man again, or he can stay in paradise because he's done his time. It's time for other heroes to, pick up the sword, and the sword got, that's another. So it's time for other heroes to fill those furry boots. We'll say it that way. And so so the catch is, if he goes back and becomes mortal again, he can never return to paradise. Like, he's forsaking his afterlife. He's, he's accepting true death someday down the road in order to go back and save the day. And that's the choice he makes. And other characters die along the way. And I won't, because again, I'll lose you if I start saying names y'all don't know. I'd have to get out my action figures and be like, this is Roboto. And but other characters die. And and Mossman, I mentioned his name, so we'll keep going with it. Mossman's in paradise too. And so a good 4 other major heroes get killed off in this story. But in that one, He-Man's the only one who comes back. And this thing gets so epic. Its balls get so big that one of the villains destroys heaven. Everyone in the afterlife blown away. The good guys. Oh, and Skeletor came back too, but it's because he'd hidden his soul in something, and he was just waiting for the power to come back, and then he fed off that and he came back. It's like he was never truly dead. He was just very much diminished. He was not a wandering soul. There was a hell. They went to hell in order to get to heaven. This thing was crazy and so brilliant. That's what I'm impressed with Kevin Smith for, is that he came into this as kind of a new fan, but completely immersed himself in the lore to the point that he is now an expert. And all the Easter, if you've watched anything else he's done, if you've read any of the comic books he's written, if you've watched any of the Supergirl episodes that he's directed, this guy knows his stuff, and he knows how to tell a hero story. And so, there's all of these Easter eggs that are just, deep cuts that only hardcore fans are gonna see and appreciate, and gosh, we do. But so when it comes to the death aspect, so they do the sequel, Masters of the Universe Revolution, and one of the major plot points is He-Man's dad is dying, or Prince Adam's dad, King Randor, is dying, and no one knows why. He has some mysterious illness that he's having organ failure. That never happened in the 80s on the TV. They never had He-Man's dad die from organ failure. In the old Filmation show. But that's what happens. That's what happens in this series, is King Randor dies in episode 1. of the new series. And so there's a quest, and again I'm trying not to bombard you with character names. There's a quest to then restore the afterlife, or paradise, so that his soul has someplace to go. And all the other heroes who got blown away, and some of the heroes who got killed by Skeletor and sent to hell by Skeletor, who didn't belong there. Oh, and another character came back to life in the last one too, but it was like a planned right then, death, resurrection, and it fit the story, because, you know, the villain becomes a goddess, and, or, you know, gods and goddesses happen, and they call on the spirits of the dead, which brings some of the heroes back into the fray. But when they're all getting sucked back into the other side, one of the maybe villain, maybe not at this point, grabs his hand and is like, not this time. Won't let him get sucked back in. So then he's back. And it makes sense. Like, you can do it here, and it has to... I feel like you can't do it the same way 100 times, like like they do in the comics and in the daytime soaps. But so, like, in this one, all the other characters who died in the first series are still dead. And King Randor is now dead. And so they go on this quest to restore Preternia, is what they call heaven. And so, it's an epic story. I mean, it's just so deeply rooted in mythology, the way they're telling these stories, and in Masters of the Universe lore. It's just... I can't praise this show enough. So, to my long-winded point, despite 3 characters dying and being resurrected in the previous series, death has integrity in this story. They aren't trying to resurrect all of those characters. They're trying to give them a paradise to go to as their reward for dying as heroes. And so you're thinking, because, you know, comic books, this is that kind of story where just, oh, we kill everyone and then everyone comes back, yay, everyone lives happily ever after again. But they don't. King Randor stays dead. All the characters from the previous series, they stay dead, but they get to go to heaven. And that's kind of how it goes. And they kill more characters in this series. And they go into the afterlife. It's all... So death has integrity. They haven't watered it down to the point of not having meaning or impact. Like, the previous series, Resurrections, were all very much exceptions to the rules that they are now bound to follow and respect. That, you know, people live their time. And then they move on, and we move on without them. And that was kind of one of the messages of the show, and I loved it. And another thing that had balls, just the killing off of characters is ballsy. Killing off King Randor. They also killed off this dragon character from the old Filmation show called Granomir, who I love. Because he's such a jerk. And, like, he's also mysteriously dying. But it's taking longer than with Randor because he's a dragon. And it's all kind of tied to the fact that Preternia had been destroyed. And this, I'm just going to talk about one other aspect of this thing so that this doesn't go on for like 800 years. But right, so they got the characters so perfect in these 2 miniseries. They got the characters so perfect. Yes, it's its own continuity. It's not the same continuity as the old 80s show, but the characters are the characters. Like, Granomir is a bitch. Like, he's all... and that's how he was in the old Filmation cartoon. It was like, like he showed up in an episode of the original series called The Dragon's Gift, and like one of the heroes gets turned into a crystal statue, and if they don't reverse this magic by a certain time, it's going to be a permanent change. He can't ever be restored. And so the only person who or the only being who has the power to reverse this crazy spell is the dragon Granomir, who hasn't spoken to humans in 1,000 years. And so He-Man goes and is like, hey, my friend has been turned into a crystal statue. You have the power to help. Will you please help me? And Granomir's like, well, you didn't even give me a gift. Go away. No. Humans are stupid. And then He-Man's like, what gift do you want? I'll give you any gift. You have to help me save my friend. And he's like, okay. Well, maybe if you murder Skytree for me. I mean, they eventually work it out and become friends. It's all good, and He-Man's friend gets turned back into a human. But so in this series, the sorceress of Castle Grayskull goes to Granomir and is like, hey, the king is dying. I want to restore heaven. I can't do it without your help. And Granomir, who himself is dying and about to face an afterlife without a heaven, is just like, how about no? It's so great. And you know, he has the typical kind of Granomir coming to terms with things and growing as a character. And he does die, but he dies in battle. He doesn't die of organ failure, and he gets to go to the restored heaven. I told you I was going to spoil the crap out of it. And so, the one other thing I want to talk about this iteration of Masters of the Universe is the character of Prince Adam / He-Man. Because, okay, so I mentioned how he was the only He-Man who ever went to heaven and didn't just live for eternity in his He-Man form. He was Flea-Man. He was the scrawny little kid who turns into He-Man for his eternity. That's what he had chosen. And one of the big points in the first series was, you know, the villains are getting all this power that he has, and they're gods and goddesses, and they realize, well, he turns into a god. But then he always sends the power back when he's done saving the day. He never holds on to it for himself, for all the advantages that would give him in life, just to always be He-Man. You know, he relinquishes the power. In the 80s cartoon, you know, they only showed it a couple times where instead of, you know, he holds a sword up and goes, by the power of Grayskull, turns into the big buff leather daddy and goes to save the day. And then, like, when he was done, he'd say, let the power return, and then he'd turn back. So the bad guys can't fathom letting the power return. And that's why they're bad guys. But what makes him special, even among the other He-Men, is his ability to relinquish that power effortlessly. So I thought another incredibly ballsy move that I don't know where they're going with this, but at the end of the show, you know, it's always been this like monarchy. The good guys are a dictatorship. And so one of the big storylines in this is that the king dies. So He-Man has to decide whether to be the king or to be He-Man, basically. That's kind of what his dad says on his deathbed. You can't be both. You have to make a choice. I mean, so there's, you know, in political intrigue, like, he winds up giving the throne to his long lost uncle who happens to also be It's like Skeletor in disguise. It's crazy good stuff, but and deeply entrenched in Masters of the Universe lore. But after they depose King Skeletor and all that, so you think, okay, well now Adam's going to be the king, right? But no. Let the power return. So he gets up to give his speech and dissolves the monarchy and says it's time for the people to rule themselves. And I'm like, holy hell. Never saw that coming. That was probably the biggest unexpected plot twist in the whole thing to me. Was that in this iteration, and there have been other iterations, because there's no one canon to Masters of the Universe, which is one of the things that makes it great. Everyone can do their own thing with it. There's a multiverse. So your comic books don't have to line up with their TV show. Do your own thing. So there have been a few things done where we get King He-Man, where Randor is killed off in a timeline, and they've never had it where he chooses to end the monarchy. Like he straight up says, it doesn't make sense that we have this system where people are made rulers based on who their parents are. Like they're born to certain parents, and so they get to rule everyone. And he's like, it's time for the people to rule themselves. We're going to have elections and a democracy. And I'm like, okay, that was a ballsy move, because you've just upended everyone's expectations for this thing. It's, it's got all those tropes of high fantasy. And you've just knocked all the dominoes down on that. And I thought it was great. It was brilliant. Right, so here's to you, Kevin Smith. Root beer. Because that was a really fun time. And now my house is haunted. So, yeah, but I mean, that's pretty much it. I give all the thumbs up. Like, that show is great. If you're a He-Man fan, watch it. But honestly, like, this is what I've been telling people who just love a great story, who love mythology, or who love superhero genre kind of stuff, or high fantasy. If you've never seen a Masters of the Universe cartoon or read a Masters of the Universe comic, this is its own continuity. You don't need to have seen anything, because the basic premise is pretty simple. And you can watch this, and this can be your first taste of Masters of the Universe, and it's fantastic. You'll become a fan. And you will probably agree with me, unless you don't, because different strokes for different folks. But I honestly believe Kevin Smith should be making big budget superhero movies. He should be, if they would let him have the freedom to tell the stories his way, oh my gosh, he has so much to give. And so, it ended with a cliffhanger, just as the first series did, and I really, really, really hope they follow up on it, because, and I mean, it got into the top 10 on Netflix, so it's been pretty darn successful, so that gives me hope that they're going to do a third one. I don't know how long we'll have to wait, but it's going to be a worthwhile wait. So that's me gushing about a TV show. Gushing about a TV show from my haunted haunted house. So if you've watched it, let me know what you thought. If your house is haunted, let me know what you did about it. Not that I'm worried about it. I mean, because I'm not, okay, walking in on me in the shower, maybe that was crossing a line. But I don't know if it's the same ghost that helped me find my blanket. So yeah, that's it. That's all I wanted to say. If you enjoy my videos, please, if you are so kind and so inclined, click like, subscribe. I had 27 subscribers, then I kept making videos. Now I'm back to 26. So, yeah, and if you want to check out my writing, my books, my short fiction, it's all at glennslade-clark-jr.com. You can find links to buy them anywhere and everywhere. Links to these videos, the podcast I do with Matt called Autodidactica. You can find it all there. Stalk me properly, and I will talk to you next time.